I think all of this nonsense started when Vosh called Batman reactionary in one of his streams, especially the Batman movies, I believe. Uh, he goes around and says, well, yeah, Bane did have a point. The system is corrupt, but instead of building a better system, he is going to nuke the city. And it's like, la la la. But yeah, after calling Batman reactionary, you get a lot of communists that are now going after Bruce Wayne on Twitter. And it's quite funny and hilarious because when you look at their arguments, it shows they do not understand what corruption looks like. I don't think they lived in a corrupt place. And the the writers of Batman make absolutely sure that people understand just how corrupt Gotham is. It's one of the reasons why it's considered to be the worst city in the DC universe. Now, I know that this is a comic book, all right? So I fully understand that it's all nonsense. I mean, the whole purpose is just to justify why one guy dressed up in a batsuit can exchange blows with Bane or Poison Ivy. Like that's the whole reason why you even have the lore to begin with. Because at the essence of every comic book is just a superhero punching a villain. I think you can strip a comic book of almost everything, and as long as you have the superhero punching the villain, you have the essence of what a comic book is. It's not about the political messages. It's not about the character development. It's nothing about that. If you have a simple story like Lex Luthor wants to rob a bank and Superman comes up and punches him, that's a comic book story. Anything that doesn't have this, I think you can't call it a comic book story. It's why manga shines. Manga tries to go and find a different formula. But the Western comic book, that's at the essence. And in this particular case, they just wanted a random guy to do the punching. They just wanted someone that's a human, someone without superpowers, to do the punching. So that's why he's a billionaire, right? To justify why he can go out there. So when you look at how the comic book was created, it's not really the same as the chronological order from the lore. It's not like, okay, well, let's have a little kid that gets traumatized, like, let's see what happens with that. No, they were like, okay, we need a superhero without actual superpowers. Like, what can we do? Well, maybe he's a rich guy. Okay, well, why is he doing this? Well, let's create a backstory for him, right? Like, that's how the writers designed it, at least. But I'm aware of that, right? But I just want to see if I can find the in-universe explanation for why Batman can't just use his money in order to quote unquote fix the city. And I legitimately thought about it because it's a nice thought experiment to have. Geeks used to have these thought experiments in the past. I don't know what happened with them because every time I go on a forum where I should be able to talk about Batman, I actually get bombarded with Marxist bullshit. And I think there is a universe explanation. So the first thing is that Batman actually does spend money to improve the city. There's plenty of issues in the comics, and I think even in the movies, where he spends money on various hospitals. He spends money with the police department. I know Marxists disagree with that, but he does. He spent money with Harvey Dent when he viewed him as being one of the few district attorneys that wasn't corrupt and was doing his job. So no, like Batman does spend a lot of money on trying to improve Gotham. But like the correct, I guess, universe reason on why he wouldn't spend billions of dollars on infrastructure is due to the fact that if Gotham would be even half as corrupt as Romania, and from what the writers are trying to make it out to be, it does seem to be a very corrupt town, then donating money would just make that money disappear into the pockets of politicians. All that money that you would donate for infrastructure would just disappear, just like that. Because a lot of left-leaning people don't really understand what corruption means. So let me give you an example from my country. Let's say you're a politician in charge of City Hall. Then your job as a corrupt politician is to find ways to steal taxpayer money and put them in your pockets. or at least put them in the pockets of your political party so that you can finance your next election. And one of the way corrupt politicians do this is to steal money from infrastructure. It's the best place they can steal money from. The way it works, and I think this is universal, I think it works everywhere the same. It's a tried and true tactic. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel. Let's say they want a new road to be created, or some road to be maintained. Well, what politicians do in this case is that they're going to contract a private company. And in order to do that, they're going to have to start an auction. So they're going to have 5 or 6 different construction companies that are going to take the task of creating the road. And they're going to compete with each other to who can give the best offer in order for the job to be completed. Now, the way it works is that the corrupt politician is going to be paid under the table by one of these construction companies. Let's say Luther Construction Agency is going to pay the politician under the table to get the politician to select them as the winners of the auction. So you see that now all of a sudden now the politician has money in his bank account, which is coming from a private company. And all of a sudden that private company is going to win the auction. Regardless if the other companies would have been able to build the road better, regardless if those companies would have been able to build the road cheaper, it doesn't matter because the politician really doesn't care, considering that he is not the one paying the company, it's the taxpayer that pays the company. And it's not him that gets to use the road, it's the taxpayer that gets to use the road. Usually the roads around the mayor house are very nice and very well kept. It's the roads in the slums, in the more impoverished neighborhoods that have problems and they're in disrepair. It's basically the poor people that are going to wreck their cars to work. It's not going to be the corrupt politician that's going to do that. And what also happens, like once the politician takes the deal, once he accepts the money under the table, he's not going to be able to complain about the shady work that the construction company is now doing. So let's say that the construction company uses some poor quality products, and 2 weeks after they finished doing the road, now you have holes again. Now it's breaking again, and people are complaining. Well, the mayor isn't going to be able to go to the company and say, hey, look, we got a contract here, like you got obligations to fulfill. Because then the company will be like, we paid you, and if you're going to make a fuss about it, we might leak to the press that you're taking bribes. So that's what corruption looks like. Now, imagine if Batman were to say, yeah, I'm going to give like billions of dollars in order to, create infrastructure, to make sure that all the roads are fine. Well, what would happen is that the politicians would disagree with it. They would reject the money simply because how are they going to use their scam? How are they going to get the money under the table from the private companies if you were to have like a private donor? Because now that Batman would be like, okay, well, I'm going to give you my money and I want infrastructure, then what's going to happen is that he's going to be very interested in seeing the quality of the roads. He's going to be very interested in seeing how the construction is going. So he's not going to be like the taxpayer, which is disinterested, asleep, not really caring where his money is going. And that's why, in Gotham, I guess, Batman would not trust the government to do this, because this is what socialists don't understand. Just like how corporations can be evil and corrupt, so too can governments. Why? Because at the charge of corporations are people, and people are also in charge of the governments, and people are the ones that are corrupt. Okay? Like what Marxists do is that they look at the entity, the institution, but they forget that the entity and the institution is staffed by people. And the problem isn't the institution, the problem is the people in charge. And while you notice that the company is interested in making a profit, well, in the case of the government, you can have like a couple of politicians that are also interested in making a profit for themselves and not really care about what happens to everyone else. And that's when it starts being a problem. So there you go. I hope I managed to make a cohesive argument why Batman doesn't donate money to Gotham City Hall. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the comment section. Take care.